everybody. It is your boy, Reverend Phoenix Coffin Williams, and I am back at it with another segment of Fridays with Phoenix. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for lending me your time, your energy, and your attention. I think it's been a couple of weeks since my last broadcast on a Friday, and I have been spending the time recalibrating, readjusting, and realigning, and really kind of making a list of the things that I would be willing and open to talking about and discussing in these segments. For those of you who don't know me, I am Reverend Phoenix Coffin Williams. I am the current first priest of the Correllian tradition. My predecessor is Reverend Don Lewis. That's the one who gave me my elevation into this spot as the head of the tradition, alongside my sister, Reverend Alyssa, who sometimes makes an appearance on these shows with me. We are a global tradition. We got temples all over the world. And we really do believe that Correllianism can be for anybody, can be for everybody, but we do have standards. And a lot of times, I've been becoming aware of the disgruntled nature of the people who don't meet our standards. And that's been pretty entertaining for me to watch. But yeah, if you want to check us out, we've got plenty to talk about, plenty to teach. We do have an online seminary for people to study the various kinds of magics that they might be interested in. We do have initiatory paths for those who are interested in initiation. And I do personally recognize that there is some power, there is some purpose, there is a meaning and a force behind initiation. And not everyone is called to participate at the level that initiation requires, but for those who are called, that is a thing. And we do offer that to folks who do study in either our seminary or in any of the many temples that we have around the world. So there are multiple routes into the inner court or into the clergy of our tradition for those who might be interested. Over the past probably like 10 months, 11 months, maybe even a year, I have been talking about the universe, emanations of divinity, and the different ways that we judge these emanations. And I've been spending some time talking about where the judgments of these emanations of divinity come from. So, for example, or to contextualize, Corellians believe that deity is both immanent and transcendent, and that divinity or a deity will come to any of us in the form that is best for us due to our own self imposed limitations. And the reason why I call them self imposed limitations is because we also recognize that all of us are an aspect of that immanent and transcendent divinity. And because we have chosen to incarnate or reincarnate or enter the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, we have these limitations that we have accepted upon ourselves, that are maybe amplified or manifested by or reinforced by the veil. Some people might say that the veil is what separates the world of the living from the world of the dead. However, that is not what we believe as Corellians. For us, the veil is the thing that prevents us from recognizing that we are divine. The veil is the thing that prevents us from recognizing that everything that we are looking at is an emanation of the divine. The veil is the thing that helps us over identify with our ego or our lower self or our personality. Oh, hi, Christo Koev. Thank you for your irrelevant comment. Stick around. Definitely open to seeing some more of. Um, I definitely look forward to. Yeah, I'm reading more of your comment. Definitely irrelevant. And your recommendation is also pretty irrelevant, but thank you for it anyway. Um, but the veil is the thing that confuses us into forgetting that we are divine beings who have chosen to have a human experience. It's not just, the thing that causes a separation when our loved ones depart this aspect of incarnation. Furthermore, as Corellians, we represent, we believe, and we reinforce that our departed loved ones um, become known as discarnate. So those of us who are living right now, we are incarnate. Those who have passed on, those that we would maybe honor and elevate and cherish on an ancestor altar, or someone that we might go to a plot of land and leave, flowers and tobacco and whiskey or rum or vodka or potatoes or whatever it is that you leave, for the uplifting of your ancestral spirits or your family spirits. Those folks are discarnate, and we teach very regularly that the incarnate and the discarnate actually work hand in hand for the overall betterment of our species. And that is part of the work of returning to a state of recognition of the divinity of all things. With that being said, we also acknowledge and support people studying divinity in all of the ways that feel right to them. Again, remember, Corellianism is an initiatory tradition, so there is a route of initiation, and we do honor and respect and affirm that, like, if you are studying on an initiatory path and you are moving towards initiation, probably a great idea to work with someone who has and can offer the initiation that you are, looking for. And with that in mind, we do affirm that there are many paths to the divine, and the path that you find yourself on is likely completely orchestrated for your benefit by your higher self, completely orchestrated by a relationship between your higher self and the overall divine greatness. The path is designed to help us get back to that place where we remember all of the various ways that we are divine. There are some people in our tradition who walk a Celtic path. There are some people who walk a path that's inspired by Japanese divinities. There are people like myself. I personally walk the path of the Neteru, how you like to pronounce it. And I have been a long time student of the Shatat Najer, which is Kemetic spirituality. You might know Kemetic spirituality as like Egyptian faith or Egyptian religion. All of that is relevant, and all of it is comparable or syncretic in Corellianism. There is some who, follow a pantheon of angels and archangels, All of that is relevant and all of that is syncretic here in Corellianism. We honor, we respect, we encourage, we uplift all of that. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move into a discussion about the Egyptian pantheon and the way that they organized, understood, and taught cosmology. One of the things that I do love about Kemetic spirituality and Kemetic wisdom is that it really is for everyone. Everyone can benefit from learning and contemplating and representing the Kemetic principles in their lives. Uh, One of the things that I am known for saying is Ma'at is for everyone. Well, let's go back. According to Kemetic spirituality, and it does really kind of depend on what city you take a look at and what texts you take a look at, like which pyramid texts and what books you take a look at from Egypt, that the names in the story do kind of get shifted and changed about. But for example, if you are from the city of Anu, then your legend and your myths have certain names and certain flavors. If you are from um, Memphis in Egypt or in Kemet, then your mythologies and your stories will have a different flair or a different tone, different voices, and some of the names might be different. If you are from Thebes, same thing, it might be different, but the principles that are there are the same. They all begin with the universe pre-Big Bang. Let's call it that. Um, and they describe the universe undifferentiated, undivided, united. Everything was consolidated into a state of union, and they're described as noon, the still waters of everything. Everything that existed as noon in the waters. And through an act of divine masturbation, the god Atum created himself out of his own will alone. Point blank, period. Everything in Kemetic myth, scripture, legend, what have you, is allegorical. So, no, we don't actually think that a divinity actually masturbated and created, themselves and everything that came to follow. But the idea or the aspect of masturbation is a way of helping our limited. It's meant to help us understand what the energy pattern was, what the experience was, or what have you. And so we think of it as an act of joy, an act of pleasure, an act of ecstasy um, that happened that led to the creation of Atum. And for those people who do follow goddess spirituality, you might understand that the power of pleasure, the power of ecstasy, or that experience is a sacrament that's given by the goddess. And it's one of those things that we can utilize to help us connect and remember what the divine plan is for all of us. It is ecstasy, it is pleasure, it is joy. That's not to say that there isn't going to be any of the other things like bitterness or sadness or um, fear or anxiety. It just goes to say that everything started with an act of pleasure. And if you wanted to be a little cheeky about it, think about the double entendre of the Big Bang and a God creating himself through masturbation. Get it? Get it? Big Bang? Anyway, from this act, Atum created himself and or themselves. Um, and from there on, the act of differentiation or the ability or the perception of differentiation started to occur. So first there was noon, and that was everything. And then there was Atum, and that was one. Atum then created two more divinities, Shu and Tefnut. Shu and Tefnut were air and moisture. Shu and Tefnut gave birth to two more twins who would become spouses, Geb and Nut. Geb and Nut would go on to give birth to five more divinities, Asar, Aset, Nekhet, Sutek, Heru-Ur. Each of these five divinities has a divine principle, obviously, attached to them. And there's also mathematical principles attached to them. Because for the Kemet, mathematics frees us from obscurity. And that's a powerful thing to remember because we know that in this place they also created architecture, geometry, astronomy, navigation by the star, all of that. And it's based on their understandings of the creation of the universe and the mathematical principles that went into them. So Noon was everything, Atum was one, Shu and Tefnut are two, Geb and Nut four, and then the other divinities 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if you know about Kemetic spirituality, you know that the Ennead or the nine is also a way of understanding personality characteristics. And so the order of creation from Noon all the way down to, I want to say maybe Nephet is the youngest. Um, and again, like these are basically sets of twins, except Heru-Ur did not have a twin. Um, but Shutek and Osiris considered twins, although they didn't like look identical. They were twins in the fact that they were born basically at the same time as each other. Nephet and Asar, twin sisters. Maybe not in the fact that they looked identical to each other, although there are further myths that do talk about one being mistaken for the other. But as you go down in the order of creation, with Geb and Nut being second order creation after Shu and Tefnut, you start to understand the creation of the physical cosmos that we see, that we touch, the planets, the earth, the way that things orbit, all the way down to how our personalities are built and how we perceive the things that are created. With that being said, I want to maybe impart a parable, or maybe not a parable, a proverb that comes from Kemet. Search for the world inside yourself. Do not search for the world outside of yourself, because that leads to projections of your own fears and illusions on the creation around you. That proverb aligns very, very closely again with the charge of the goddess. Know that all your seeking will avail you not if you can't master the idea that if what you are searching for, you can't find it within you, you will never find it with outside yourself or without you or outside or what have you. because the principles that these divinities represent, they are encoded in all of our DNA. And like I said, Ma'at is for everyone. Comedic spirituality is for everyone, regardless of what your skin color looks like, regardless of where your ancestors come from. The principles and the teachings that come from Kemet are for everyone. So powerful were these teachings that Greek scholars studied in Kemetic temple university structures because, they did not have the universities the way that we envision them now. They didn't have them in the way that the Greeks built them. Their temples were the places of academic learning. Their temples were hospitals. Their temple priests and priestesses were physicians and were surgeons and were, the healing personnel. But the Greek greats, they studied in Kemetic temples and brought these teachings back to Greece. And one of the teachings that is notably a favorite of the Greeks is written above the oracle at Delphi, man, know thyself. In the Kemetic rendition, or in the ancient Egyptian rendition, it is, man, know thyself, and you shall know the gods. And in so knowing yourself and knowing the gods, you know yourself as divinity. I would argue, and I say this with my whole chest, willing to stand on business, any spiritual teaching, whether it's magical, whether it's monotheistic, polytheistic, um, spirituality is meant to help all of us get on a path towards remembering our divinity. If it does not put you on that path, it's not a valid spirituality, in my opinion. And I think that um, faiths that don't encourage you to have a personal relationship with God, a faith that doesn't encourage you to ask questions of the leadership, a faith that doesn't appear to stand on the business that it preaches, a faith that will allow harm to come to children, a faith that would encourage people to do sneaky or underhanded things politically. Um, that is not a faith or a spirituality. I really think that it's like a delusional kind of thing, or a projection of mental illness. So keep that in mind. Like, I really do feel strongly about that. Our faiths they serve us best when they encourage us to have that personal relationship with God. They teach us to recognize the immanent and transcendent nature of divinity, and it affirms divine beings having a human experience. Um, and I'll let that be that for now. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see y'all next week. Blessed be, folks.